how do we just make it where it's just what we do? We don't struggle. We don't have to use willpower. We don't have to white knuckle it. Okay, so we know what to do, right? We've talked about a lot of these things. Figuring out your non-negotiables, figuring out ways to reduce calories in your favorite recipes. We've talked about what the weight loss formula looks like. Talked about metabolism supporting ingredients to add to your food. So we know what to do. But how do we get this on autopilot? How do we just make it where it's just what we do? We don't struggle. We don't have to use willpower. We don't have to white knuckle it. We just do it. Well, there's research on that. There's research that tells us what things we need to do to form a habit. And this doesn't even have to do with diet. It can be anything, any habit you want to form. There's some things that have to happen for that thing you want to do to become a habit. And when something becomes a habit, it's just part of who you are, it's part of your life. And if you think about it, you can turn anything into a habit. So here's what the research says to do. The first step, to figure out how to fit a new habit with an old cue. So any habit you have, there's actually a cue or a trigger that tells you to do that thing that you always do. Maybe like brushing your teeth. Maybe just waking up in the morning and going to the bathroom is your trigger to brush your teeth. So it's everything you do, there is a trigger or a cue that says, do it. Like, if you're one of those people who always got popcorn when you went to the movies, then walking in that door of the movie theater is a trigger that I get popcorn, okay? My family, I have a lot of habits that I had to break, but we never did get popcorn when we went to the movies because it was too expensive. So it was never, I'd have friends that were like, we have to get popcorn, and it just never fazed me that I wanted popcorn to go to movies because it was never a habit that was formed. So if you can imagine, if every single habit that we have in life, there's a cue or trigger that makes us do that, well, all you need to do is find something you're already doing every single day and decide that's going to be my cue or my trigger to make me do this thing that I want to do. Like, for instance, let's say you decide you want to prep some of your foods. You want to start prepping them once a week, like cutting up some veggies. You just want to cut up some veggies. You want to have veggies ready to go and cut up, or maybe you want to brown up some meat. Well, maybe you can make the cue unpacking the groceries, and instead of just putting the groceries straight into the fridge, go ahead and chop them up and then put them in. That could be a cue for some people. For me, usually I'm running around like a crazy person and I'm like throwing the stuff in and I've got 10 minutes before I go do something else. So that one may not work for me, but that's an example of how you fit it with another cue. I've got a good one that worked for me, and this one actually came from one of my clients. I had forever, every time I talked about green tea and how good it was for our mood, our brain, and with weight loss, I would say to myself, I've got to drink more green tea, but I can't seem to figure out how to get it in there. Well, one of my clients knew that I did this whole skincare routine every night. I already had that routine. That habit is formed, and I already did my skincare. And she was like, why don't you just drink your green tea while you're doing your skincare? And I was like, you know what? That is brilliant. And you're actually doing what the research says to do to form a new habit. You combine your new habit with an old cue. Sure enough, it finally worked. I had been trying to figure out how to put green tea in, and she told me that, and it was the thing that worked. So what I'll do is I'll wash my face, take a sip of green tea, put some cream on, take a sip of green tea. That's what's worked for me. But what she was telling me is what the research says to do. That's number one. Okay, number two is make that new habit fun and or desirable. So one example for me is when I want to eat healthy, I turned it into a game. Like we were talking about on the episode about making your favorite foods that you always eat into a healthier version, or making your favorite foods follow that weight loss formula. I turned that into a game. I also turn it into a game to figure, can I get more vegetables into my meals that I'm making? So it's just a game. Ooh, can I just bulk it up with more vegetables? What are some creative ways? I've snuck like cauliflower rice into all kinds of things, and you can't even tell it's in there. Another game I do is how can I sneak in more of those metabolism supporting ingredients into my meals? So I made it a game. I made it fun. I made it exciting to see how I can make things healthy and make them taste good. Love it. Such a fun game. Make it desirable. Let's say you want to start cooking more, but you don't feel like it. Put some earbuds in and start listening to music while you cook. I'm telling you, that is so fun, and it turns into a whole nother thing. So making it more desirable, more fun. You can even do like mini rewards. Like if at the end of this week, I did my non-negotiable, maybe give yourself a little something. Or a mini reward doesn't even have to be something like you buy. It could be just merely getting to write in your journal that this seemed to work. You know, that's a reward. So that's number 2. Okay, number 3 is make it small and easy. Make it small and easy. Research shows sometimes people are there where they're ready to switch everything and just turn over a whole new leaf. Research shows that most people can't just go all in over the top when they're making changes. And actually, if your change only takes 2 more minutes than what you would normally do, 2 to 5 more minutes, then you're more likely to make that change or stick to that habit. That would be things like small and easy, having fruit on the counter so that you're grabbing that. You made it easier. You made it easier to eat fruit because it's sitting on the counter. If right after you went to the grocery store, you chopped up some veggies that you can munch on and they're in the fridge, that was small and easy. Like, it's easier to grab that. That's good. That's less than 2 minutes to grab the food, and chopping it up is less than 2 minutes. For me, it was overwhelming to feel, well, one thing is my jug that I originally wanted to do was this big old water jug, and our refrigerator, the water comes out really slow. This is so crazy. I would get so tired of standing there waiting for my jug to get filled up. And then it was just felt overwhelming when I was trying to drink that whole jug. So small and easy, I switched to, this is me trying to drink more water, I switched to just filling up a little cup and taking a sip before every meal. Just saying I have to drink something before every meal, before I go get my Diet Coke. Okay, so and that has helped me. That was small and easy. That's the first step. Another way to make something easier is just to keep the healthy foods in the house. In reverse, keep the other stuff out of the house. You can't eat if it's not in there. So that's making it easier. That's making it easier for you when you just keep the healthy things in the house. So figure out how to make it smaller and easier. And this is actually a big one. Make this eating style that you're going to do part of your identity, part of who you are. Don't see it as like, I've got to fill up my water bottle every day. Tell yourself, I am a person who fills up my water bottle every day. You know, this is who you are. I'm a person who doesn't snack on things anymore. This was a good example. And eventually it becomes, you start realizing that. I'll give you an example of when I was like, wow, this has become a habit. It's become who I am. We went on vacation, and growing up, we would stop at a gas station and get some snacks when we would go on vacation. And so that was just kind of part of who I was. That was part of the identity. That's what you did on vacation. That's what I thought about when I thought about vacation. So one day we were in a QT, and then when I was gaining weight, I was still getting snacks at the gas station, but I was getting healthier ones like nuts and things like that. But it was adding up too many calories. So, you know, my new identity is I eat meals, but I don't eat snacks except for fruits and vegetables. So my instinct was to go, when we went into the QT on a vacation, I'm walking around like, ooh, let's get snacks. And then immediately, unconsciously, I went, oh, you don't do that anymore. And then it hit me. I was like, oh, I just said that to myself. Oh, you don't do that anymore. You don't get snacks in the QT. So turning it into an identity, it wasn't you can't. It was like, you don't. This isn't who you are. You don't do that anymore. So turn it into identity. Do you know when you have a hobby, it's like your new hobby, you get so excited about it, and then you want to get t-shirts for it, and you want stickers about it? Like right when I started paddleboarding, I got leggings that had paddleboards on it, things like that. So it becomes your identity. You're into it. You're excited about it. You see yourself as that person. So I don't know if you noticed, but a couple of years ago, maybe it was like last year, at least around here in South Carolina, the big trend was there was so much apparel that had those Christmas tree Little Debbie cakes. I mean, you could get earrings, you could get shirts. Go to an ice cream place and they would have the special Christmas tree cake ice cream. Like, it was It was everywhere. It was everywhere. You could get cups that had it on there. So that was like just a trend. But I remember that trend. I was like, oh, those are cute. But I mean, it was like, oh, but I don't eat that. So I'm not going to buy that. I don't eat that. I tend to see a shirt that says like kale, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I want that because I eat vegetables. So that is your mindset. I want you to see yourself, the person who does those things. Whatever your list is of what you do, this is what I do now. Because guess what? Body might not be there yet, but if you're doing those things, that's who you are. You're a healthy person. You're living a healthy life. You are a healthy person because you're a person who eats healthy and lives healthy, even if it hadn't shown up yet. So start really telling yourself this, telling yourself, I'm a person who does this. Start making it fun. Make it feel like it's a hobby. It's one of your hobbies now, right? I'm telling you, when you do that, it's huge. It is so get excited about it, just like you get excited about any new hobby you have. Research shows that works, making it your identity, making it your hobby. Okay. So after you've done that, those four, what you need to do is think about what habits you're trying to change. And of course, you think about what might be the little tiny thing that's causing an issue that I'm wanting to change. And then you go through those four and figure out how you can make it a habit. Think of that habit. You think of that thing you want to change. You say, what cue can I put it with? What cue can I put it with to make it a habit? How do I make it fun and desirable? How do I make it small and easy? And how is this going to become part of my identity? And you start brainstorming it and then put it in your journal. Another part of making something on autopilot is really keeping a journal. And you don't have to keep it every day. You don't have to write on everything you eat. You can. But just having that journal that you can brainstorm what's going on. You can write down your successes. You can write down, oh, this didn't work, but maybe this will work. And I write down my things that I do. Here's what I do, my non-negotiables, however you want to call it, my hard lines, my red lines, my non-negotiables, and actually write a list of them. Every so often, I write them again just to get it in my mind that this is what I do. And sometimes I'll write it again because I'm kind of forgetting. It takes practice, especially at first. I was kind of like, oh yeah, what do I do? And I rewrite it again. What do I do? I rewrite it again, and I'm telling you that helps. So those were kind of the techniques to help form a new habit. If those are the techniques to help form a new habit, you can imagine the opposite will help break a habit, okay? Break a habit that you don't. If to form a habit, you combine that habit with an old cue, to break a habit you don't want anymore, then you take out that cue. You remove the cue or the trigger. I talked about this in another episode, but a client that every time he came home from work, he walked in the kitchen door and it was like, I get this. Like I actually could relate to this. It was just, he needed to decompress and he, without almost thinking about it, he would start opening the pantry and the cabinets and the fridge and just kind of start eating some stuff. The cue was walking into the kitchen when he came home from work. So he had to break that cue and start walking in the front door. He walked in the front door and I'm going to sit in my recliner for a minute, and that broke it. So you got to break that cue. If you're going past some kind of restaurant that you keep eating at whenever you go home from work, go another route. Okay, I have one. For me, eating that food in the afternoon, I would make a snack, like almost like a little mini dinner snack for my kids before they went off to all their dance and soccer things. And that was when I was eating stuff. To break that cue, I made it, and then I went into the bedroom and shut the door and started watching TV. So I broke the cue. The cue was standing around with them. Now I can stand around and it's no longer a habit because I broke that cue. If number two is make it fun and desirable for forming a habit, to break a habit, you make the old habit unattractive and more difficult. So like if the food's not in the house, it's going to be way more difficult for you to eat that food that you've been wanting to eat. I had to break my chips addiction. Like it's not a real addiction, but like a mental, psychological addiction. I would have them in the house and I would just say, oh, I'll just have a little bit, just a handful. And then I'd have another handful a little bit later and then another handful a little bit later. And I really had to just take the chips out of the house. My kids couldn't have chips for a little while. I had to get chips that I don't like for them, or like, Cheez-Its weren't like one of my things. So I kept a lot of Cheez-Its in the house for the kids, but the chips were out. for, I would say like 3 months. I first said like 2 months, and then I was like, I'll go longer because I broke the habit. And now there are chips in the house and I don't touch them. I will eat them with a meal that's like, that goes with chips, like a sandwich or something like that. But, oh no, really, I don't. I really don't touch them. I don't do that. I really don't touch them. I mean, if I go out and that's what people have, that's what I'll eat, but I don't, making it unattractive and more difficult. Start thinking about, all right, and then there's another thing you can do. It's called urge surfing. And this is what you do when a craving hits. When a craving hits, just tell yourself, this could be a non-negotiable. Maybe your non-negotiable is not, I'm not going to snack anymore. Maybe your non-negotiable is, I'll wait 15 minutes before I snack. The minute I want to snack, I'm going to wait 15 minutes. And that is called urge surfing. See if you really like it, if you really want it. And then after that, if you do, then go ahead. Or maybe it's so close to dinner, then it doesn't matter. And in that 15 or 20 minutes, you might say 20 minutes if you want to be, go a little bit longer. But in that 15 or 20 minutes, do something else that you want to do. Because you obviously have time because you're about to stop and eat. So time that you're going to take to eat, go do something else. Go either, what I like to do is dance. That was something I did. First I would go watch TV, and then I loved dancing. And dancing was like, a song's like 3 or 4 minutes, right? So it didn't take up much time. And the minute I want to do something, I would turn a song on and just dance. And my craving was gone. My craving was go for a walk. Go do something else whenever that urge happens. And then if you still have it, go ahead and eat it. Now, I had a client that went out to eat with her family, and they had dinner, and then they went to, I think it was Crumble Cookie, and she got a cookie, but she decided not to eat it yet. And by the time she got home, she did not want it. And she just let her kids have it because she urge surfed. She waited to see if that was something she really wanted, and she didn't. You can even, to urge surf, you can eat a healthier food first, or do a little bit of exercise first. Do something healthy first that's going to help your body. And then if you still want it, you can eat it. But you did something to help your body first. You ate an apple, which had fiber in it, so you helped your body. You marched in place a little bit, so you did activity, so you helped your body. But do something 15 or 20 minutes to see if that urge goes away. And then eventually, doing that, you stop wanting. You're breaking the habit. It's pretty amazing that what the research shows, and how when you put it into your own life, how it really, truly works. But you got to do it. You got to say, I'm going to do this. But you got to do it. You got to trust the process. You got to trust the process. And these little techniques that research shows helps you break the habit. All right. So now I want to talk, and this is such a weird scenario, but I just have never found anything better to I've never found a better way to describe it. All right, let's talk about why a small change tends to work better. So there's 2 ways to make changes, right? There's making something really small or going all in. And you can actually do both. But I think you can go really, really small, or you can go all in on one small thing. It's rare that you go all in on everything. In some cases, going all in on a small thing, so you're still kind of going small, works. Like my chips, for example, that was an addiction, and I realized until I couldn't say only 1 handful of chips a day was going to be my non-negotiable, because it wouldn't work. Then I'd have another one, then I'd have another one. I had to cut that because that was a psychological addiction, and say no more chips. But it was still a small thing. It wasn't no more anything else. It was just chips. You can't go all in on something small. Sweets, maybe you want to really break that habit. That was another one I broke. Just by saying for 2 weeks, I'm going to go with no sweets. You could go even smaller than that. If you have a sweet every single night, maybe you need to say for 2 days, I'm going to go with no sweets. Then the next week, 3 days. If you need to go smaller, go as small as you need to go. Make a move. So hard, people get paralyzed, like, what if I fail? But you got to make that move. It could be small, but it can't be so small that you're really not making a move. It's got to be small. Maybe it's once a week. 1 day a week you won't have a sweet. And then the next week will be 2 days, but you got to make a move. And instead of just thinking, I'm thinking about starting to try to do this, you got to say, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it now. So with all that being said, even when you do something big, like I'm going to cut out sweets, it's still one thing. So the best way to make a change is to do small. Now let me explain why. So, and this is my scenario that I think is so weird, but it's the best one I can think of. And I don't even know if it's true. So apparently, I have heard that if you want to cook a frog, don't know, never done it, but if you want to cook a frog, you got a pot of boiling water and you throw that frog in the pot of boiling water, the frog will jump out immediately. Because it's like, no, I'm not doing this. No, I'm not doing this. But if you put a frog in and ever so slowly bring the water up to a boil, the frog won't notice the difference because it happens so slowly that it stays in the pot of boiled water. That's so sad, but let's put that into this whole habit changing thing. If somebody says you're gonna have to change everything, you're gonna jump out. You're gonna be like, I'm out. That's too much. But what if the changes were so small that you never even noticed the difference, but you kept making change, kept making a change, kept making change, and suddenly you're in a whole different environment like this frog. Your whole world is different, and you didn't even notice. You didn't even notice because you made the changes little by little by little. But you got to do it. You got to make the changes. And if that non-negotiable doesn't work, try another one. Take it back. Maybe it was too big. Take it back. But keep making that change. That's it. That is what the research says on how to form new habits and how to break habits. And from my personal experience, that is what works. So for you, and I'd love to hear in the comments what things you're going to do, but in your journal, jot down the habits you want to break, the habits you want to form, and then go through the list that we talked about and figure out ideas. These can be your non-negotiables. Figure out how you're going to make it fun and easy. What cue you're going to add it to, what cue you're going to break. List it as your non-negotiable. That's how you do it. We'll see you next time.